Hello, this is Gerd Leonhard, and welcome to The Future Show. Today's episode is on the future of knowledge and learning. Education and learning is dramatically changing and decentralizing and going peer-to-peer. Information is becoming widely available. So anything that we don't know, we can look it up at a heartbeat. And very soon we can do that with connected devices that we're actually wearing, like our wristwatches or Google Glass or other things. So data, information, and knowledge to a very large degree is becoming commoditized. Knowing something and understanding something are two different things, but at a certain point, having all access to the data and information is becoming something that pretty much anybody can do. And very soon we're going to have that in developing countries as well. So the question is, when you're learning something, what does learning actually mean? And learning in the future, or already today, means that the real goal of learning is to understand something and to develop some sort of intelligence and what people call wisdom around this topic. So what does that mean for education? I think we can safely say that education is moving into the cloud, just like music or films. Textbooks will become digital. Most countries will stop printing textbooks because it's not efficient to deliver textbooks to a billion students around the world in a physical format. So you'll see that all happening in Brazil, in India, in Indonesia, to where governments will just buy a tablet with $3 or $4 each, and every student gets a tablet, and you can tap into the cloud and learn whatever you want at any given time in 47 languages. So you can argue, for example, if you're from India, you don't have any money, you study online at the Khan Academy at Coursera, you learn all these hacking skills, and after half a year you can get a big-time job at Twitter or whatever, remotely, from wherever you are in India, and that's also a career. This is all happening in parallel. The future of education as far as traditional organizations and institutions is concerned, right? I mean, let's make no mistake about it. This is not the same thing going to MIT and hanging out with your classmates and doing all the things that you can do in Boston than to study at MIT online. Right? So if you're going to reduce education to the fact of saying, I can get all the information online, that's true. I can study all that online, and it's also a good thing to have. At the same time, you can argue, when you're learning something in a digital environment, you're not actually really immersed, right? Because you're not in the classroom, you're not hands-on, you're not with the other people. So there's a bridge to be closed between those two, and I think this is what we're going to see in the next 10 years. If I was a student today, if I was 12 or 13 years old, and I would look to decide what I want to do, first I would understand that 3/4 of the jobs that I'm going to have aren't even invented today. Keeping that in mind, I need to find a way that I'm going to bring myself up to speed at all times. I'm going to learn how to learn, I'm going to learn how to use technology, I'm going to work on what only I can do. What is my particular angle on things? And then maybe I will get a degree from an art school or somebody who teaches me to be in the moment. Right? Anything that is authentic about what you do and what you can provide becomes the key to the future. Because anything that's not authentic just is done by somebody else. So when we talk about the future of learning and knowledge and of course of jobs, I think it's very important to understand that anything that has a physical component, whether it's craftspeople or plumbers or gardeners or cooks or anything that has to do with actual things is going to increase in importance, because the fact that we have all this information available doesn't really replace the experience. Any job having to do with experience and with actually being there and immersing yourself is going to increase, while those jobs that are going to transport us there virtually by the sense of information or technology will commoditize. I think ultimately, as to the jobs that we may need in the future, people are going to build roads with machines, they're going to print houses with machines, but then there's a difference between a plumber understanding my plumbing and fixing the plumbing at home, because that requires more foresight and more insight. So there's a cutoff at a certain point. It's going to be a long time before we can get a robot to be our plumber. However, I think the important part, again, is to notice what is a physical job, like fashion. You can't yet send fashion through the internet and then put it on. You can simulate that, but you can't actually print clothes and put it on quite yet. So when 3D printing comes along and you can print things like coffee cup holders and eventually shoes designed by a Chinese designer, and I just pay the designer for the design, not for the shoe, that is entirely possible. So the question is, how does education support new kinds of jobs and what we're going to be doing in the future? So if we're assuming that new jobs, for example, will be things like artificial intelligence designers and creative skills and all kinds of technology-oriented jobs and programming of robots and machines, and not just technology but also socially, then we have to ask the question, what's going to happen with education? Thanks very much for listening. This is Gerd Leonhard.